Swiss chard, or spinach as it is locally referred to here, is one crop that is highly prone to fungal and bacterial infections, especially during the rainy season, and the crop, when during wet and rainy conditions. And in the recent past, I've always been dreaded the rainy season, especially with this crop, this Swiss chard, because in a very short time, in about 2 weeks or so, the crop will be seriously infected, unmarketable, and lead to huge losses, and thus be forced to clear out the crop. But in currently, like this particular batch here is about 1.5 months into the rainy season, but it was transplanted. It's about 3 months old, but now it has been harvested. I've been harvesting this during the rainy season for about 1.5 months, and the crop is still healthy, and there are little to no signs of fungal and bacterial disease infections. So what did I do differently this time around to achieve this? That's what I'll be sharing with you in this video. So how I've managed to maintain this crop in this condition despite being in the middle of the rainy season. The first thing is land preparation. Before transplant of this Swiss chard, I prepare this bed nicely, and I transplant them on raised permanent beds. The reason for raising these beds is because to allow for water, to avoid waterlogging during this rainy season. So with a raised bed, the water it's well draining, well aerated, and during the bed preparation, of course, we also add lots of organic matter. That's how allows the soil is well aerated, and there will be no signs of there will be no compaction, and that will be no waterlogging that may lead to spread of this fungal disease. It has just been raining a few hours ago, and the sun is up, but you can see the soil is well drained. There is no signs of any waterlogging. So the other step is properly feeding your crop. So after transplant, ensure that every 3 to 4 weeks I do a top dress, and every 2 weeks or so I do a foliar feed, with a fertilizer rich in nitrogen, alternating with some seaweed fertilizer, to be able to help the crop cope with the stress. Because here, being at the equator, as much as we are in the rainy season, we're getting probably the rainy season during the evening, and during the day, the sun is up. So without fluctuations, and to ensure the crop is not stressed, that's why we do a foliar spray of seaweed every weekly or every other week. And then every 3 to 4 weeks, probably after every 2 harvests, I do a top dress, a basal fertilizer, to ensure that the crop is healthy. Because when a crop is healthy, it's able to, keep off these fungal diseases. It's, a crop that is healthy is able to cope with the fungal easier than a crop that is not healthy. So from the soil, well fed also with organic matter, and also complement that with feeding the crop as well with the fertilizer and the foliar feed. With that, now a healthy crop, to be able to keep off the fungal action. So the other thing I've done differently that I've seen that has given me good results is the harvesting and the disease prevention. What I've done, what I do here is, the target market I have here is for retail. So previously, I used to harvest this any other time. Whenever the customer walks in, I was just harvesting it without a particular schedule. Those frequent harvests, I noticed that's when the crops are highly susceptible to these infections. So what I've done now is I've limited the harvest to only once every 2 weeks. So what I do, once I harvest the entire batch, sell it out to the market, then immediately do a fungicide, a preventative fungicide, probably a copper-based fungicide, and then let that crop be for 2 weeks. So until you see when you harvest, those you open up those wounds, And probably when it rains, the soil, which could be carrying out the pathogens, the fungal spores, will get into that and could be able to spread the disease. Even before I do the next harvest, I make sure that crop has, previous wounds have completely healed. And with that, I've noticed that there's been a very huge difference because now crop is still healthy. Almost 6 weeks into the rainy season, there are very minimal signs of the fungal infection. And another advantage that now is that keeping the crop for 2 weeks not harvest, I'm going to get larger leaves. And when I get out in the market, I have a quality product because I'm selling by the kilogram, by weight. So I'm also able to fetch a better margin. And again, also with keeping this crop clean, that doesn't have any signs of fungal infections also. It's highly marketable and able to sell this at a premium to the final consumer. So the other thing I've done differently and that has proven to be successful is the weeding. In as much as we vilify the weeds that they bring competition of nutrients and at times even carry pest and diseases, so they might harbor pest and diseases. So during this rainy period, I completely avoided doing the weeding, in that period. And you can notice even at this section that I yet to harvest, but there are lots of weeds. Yeah. But the reason being I didn't want to disturb the soil with rain, because now once you disturb the soil, those are water splashes. It's they highly susceptible to spread of those fungal infections. Another advantage I notice with the weeds, because this is just my experience, what I've seen working for me, is that see now the weeds are covering up most of the area, so even if it rains heavily, there's no water splash as such because there's of that vegetative cover of the weeds. Be able to protect the crop from getting all those water that splashes onto the stem. You end up with a clean crop that is less affected by the fungal infections. So what I've been doing is whenever I get a chance, I harvest and then quickly do the weeding when there are signs of no rain, So, and if it's any signs of going to be some rainfall according to the forecast also, I just let the weeds be. It doesn't have so much effect. See, the crop is healthy despite it. There have been lots of weeds, but it's easier because I tried that earlier. There's a sample where I did the weeding, and in a very short time, I used to do continuous weeding, to keep off weeds. But in a very short time, the crop will be highly affected by those fungal infections and lose out on the crop. And now I'm able to maintain the crop even during the rainy season. So those are some of the things that I've done differently in the previous seasons that seem to have worked with this particular Swiss Chard crop, that I'm able to harvest it for longer during the rainy season. And it's still, since the crop is still healthy, I'll be able to harvest it for a little bit more longer. So those are some of the few things that I've done differently that I've noticed that working out for me. Probably if you're having challenges that, you can try it out and see whether it works out on your end as well. So that's more like it. Thank you so much for watching. Till the next one, happy farming.